What's going on YouTube? OCD for EDC here. And what I got for your face balls today are these. These happen to be two pre-production, or one of them's a prototype, the other one's a pre-production model of a brand new knife that I'm going to guess not anybody has seen yet at this point, or if they have, it's been very limited numbers of people. So yeah, we're going to be talking about these in pretty great detail. Very, very interesting design. Right off the top here, these are coming from a gentleman by the name of Nick Rogers. He started this company called Nitch Design, and this is his first go at a knife design. The name of this model here is the Ingress. It's spelled Ingress, and it's a very interesting knife, one that I'm certainly glad that I got to take a look at and spend a little bit of time with. These are being manufactured by We over in China, and so I'm going to do my best to show you everything you need to know about this knife, give you a little bit of backstory. I did call Mr. Rogers and actually speak to him about this model here and kind of what his thought processes were as it applies to designing this knife. And there's some good and some bad here, and I'm going to, like I said, do my best to show you everything that I've learned about my time with the Nitch Design Ingress. So right off the jump here, we're going to use this one here because this is the actual production version of the knife. And I'm going to show you some of the differences from the prototype to the production. There are a significant number of differences. I'll actually set it this way so it lays nice and flat. But we'll start out here with a few size comparisons so you can get an idea of what this knife is in relationship to. So right off the bat here it is with the Hogue Deca. And another very similar size knife, the Benchmade Bug Out. Throw out one that a lot of people are familiar with, the Para 3 Lightweight. So there you go. I'll kick that up like that a little bit. And here it is with the Spyderco Manix 2. So I think that gives a pretty good understanding of the size of these knives. Definitely, these are intended to be an EDC style knife, and there is some very, very interesting things going on here. One of the things that I noticed right from the get-go was just how unique this design is. You know, we're going to talk about the pocket clip, but the rest of the knife is just a very, very unique design. I love seeing new things, and so I applaud Nick for going outside the box, especially for his very first production model. Thinking outside the box, doing something totally different. It's a very interesting shape all the way around. I really like it for a lot of reasons, and so let's get into it. I think right off the top here, what we'll do is I'm going to show a lot of the differences between these two knives. So straight away, of course, everybody picks out these holes that are in this is the production model with the holes in the blade. This is the prototype model. You can also see here you've got his logo, if you will, for Nitch Designs is right here on the blade. See if I can get a good shot of that. There you go. So it's an NR. Yeah, I don't know. So that's just his. Oh, that's for Nick Rogers. Sorry. Drawing a blank there for a moment. And then there's a P there for a prototype. So this was the first prototype. You can also see down here they marked it. This is number 4 of 4. But you'll see some interesting things with the blade, like this little area here for the stop pin. And then again up here for the stop pin. And this is one of the things that I noticed kind of straight away. When you set these two side by side, you can see that the stop pin is in a very, very different location. The one in my left hand is the actual production model. So you can see that they changed the location of the stop pin. And then on the side profile, this dimension right here, this is the prototype. You can see that this comes down to a much smaller area. Let me see if I guess I can turn them over like this here. So you can see a big difference. So they extended this all the way almost to the blade, and on this one they cut it back significantly. And the reason that that matters is when these are both open, you can see here that on the prototype version, the titanium comes all the way down to the same surface as the cutting edge, where on the production model, they changed up the sharpening choil and they cut the titanium off higher so you can actually get down on a cutting board. Now for me and my fingers still stick down below the cutting edge, but somebody that has smaller fingers than I will certainly be able to go flat down onto a cutting board, which is really nice. If you're cutting up against a flat surface like that, that's a nice feature to have. So that's something that this does extremely well. One of the other differences I noticed right away was the pocket clips. You can see here, this is a very reminiscent design pocket clip, but on the production or the prototype model, you can see that the clip just comes up at an angle like this, and it is rounded on the tip there. On the actual production model, they, comes up and then bends back to go parallel with the knife scale. Much more comfortable in hand, and it's a little more squared off on the tip. So the clip is done extremely well. It's got really, really good retention. It is very similar to a Benchmade screw pattern. And of course, the pocket clip is very reminiscent to a Chris Reeves design. Again, I'm not saying that in any sort of negative way. The clip is great. The retention's great, goes in and out of the pocket great. But I'm sure because of this area right here, and just the overall aesthetic, if you take the screws out, it looks very, very similar to a Reeves clip. But, Reeves clips work great, so no issues there. The deployment method on this knife is strictly this opening hole. It works well for thumb opening as well as finger flicking. Personally, I like the finger flicking on this knife. It's very enjoyable, very easy. The detent is tuned quite nicely. There is a bit of a difference here between these. The prototype version has a little bit of a stronger detent, but both are really well done and very adequate for the knife. Both are riding on bearings, so the mechanics of the two knives are very, very similar, with the exception of the stop pin being moved. Now, one of the other differences you can see here, so on the prototype, you've got these areas where the stop pin went into on both sides. On the production model, the stop pin has been moved, so they don't have to have those cutouts in the blade. So it works extremely well. I'm guessing, it's certainly, by moving that stop pin, it relieved a bit of complexity to the build, and that was a positive thing. The holes in the blade here, balance point on this knife is really good. It's right where you would expect it to be, right in that kind of first choil area. And so the holes in the blade, I'm sure were there to lighten some of that, to make it not so blade heavy. We are dealing with a very tall blade here. And the blade is 20 CV. Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it said it somewhere. So there you go right there, CPM 20 CV. And that will be in the production model. So you got a full titanium construction made by WE Manufacturing, 20 CV blade steel. This is full titanium hardware, which is very nice. And then we have a hardened steel insert, and the over travel stop is done in a really nice way. It's done right into the insert there, but they did it in a nice way instead of having, a disc or something that comes down and catches down here. I think this is pretty nice integration. The other thing they did with the insert was milled out a nice kind of chamfered area there for the lock bar release. And that was done extremely well. So mechanically, this knife is done very, very well. Real quick, let's go through a few of the measurements. And so overall dimensions here, overall length, you got 7.46 inches. You got a handle length from this point here all the way to the end of 4.60. You have a blade length. If you measure from this point to the tip, not on the diagonal, but on the straight, it measures 2.86 inches. If you measure from this point right here, the leading edge of this portion of the handle out to the tip, it measures 3.327. So, depending on where you want to measure it from, you're going to get a little bit of a different measurement. Obviously, from this point out to the tip is the longest portion of the blade, and it's a little over 3 inches at 3.327. Cutting edge on this knife is 2.95 inches. So that portion right there is 2.95. Blade stock thickness is 120 thousandths. And we have a really, really nice, very high flat grind. You can see where they started the flat grind is essentially the bottom line of this opening hole, and it's canted down at an angle to here. Really, really nice flat ground, satin finished there. And behind the edge thickness, at the heel of the blade, it measures 12 thousandths, and out at the tip, it's 13. So very, very nice, thin, slicey blade, really tall, flat grind. This thing's going to glide through material pretty well. Weight on this knife, the production model is a bit lighter than the prototype, but this is the production here. So you're looking at 4.412 ounces. And just to show you some of the weight relieving they did, the prototype is 4.878. So, this, it's a really interesting knife all the way around. Functionally, it's really good. The mechanics on it are great. Of course, very, very nice kind of free dropping blade. And they've done some very extensive weight relieving and internal milling here. You even actually have a milled out area on the backspacer, which I'll show you here in a couple of minutes. But you got this interesting texture pattern on the front side here, which really opens it up for a lot of interesting anodizing possibilities. And you have this portion of it on the back. So just gives some nice visual interest. It doesn't necessarily, helps a little bit with grip. Your fingertips are coming across and landing on that area. This pocket clip is not reversible, so this is really a right hand only knife. However, ergonomically, it's good in both. The ergonomics on this thing are very, very good. It fits a lot of different hand sizes. Since I've had it, I've had my wife and my son and a few other people grab a hold of this knife and tell me what they think about it. Everyone has really, really liked the ergonomics on this knife. I really like this thumb area here. You got this cool harpoon on the blade. You guys already know I love some poon. And yeah, I love blades that have a harpoon on them. Apparently, Wee is not the biggest fan of this, because when I was talking to Nick, he told me that we said to him that harpoons were not in their design language, so it wasn't something that they would offer as a production model. However, they're obviously they can do them well, because this one's very well done and looks nice and is really comfortable as a thumb ramp there. This also works well for kind of a pinch grip and draw cuts like that. As far as a reverse grip, it works. Not something that I'm really into, but in a traditional sense, the grip on this knife is very, very well done. There's no jimping at all on this knife anywhere, which is something that I like. If the knife's designed well, you don't need jimping, and so that's really great. One of the other design features I like a lot is the internal relief cut on the lock bar. That's something that, if you guys have watched my channel for any length of time, that's something that I am not a big fan of, when that relief cut is on the outside. Certainly, this adds another step into the production process. I've had a handful of times people have said, "Well, they have to flip it anyway." It's not about when you have to flip it. The deal is that when you after you do this relief cut for the production, this becomes almost unmachinable here because this will flop around during the machining process. So your fixturing has to be done in a way where you can make this cut for the lock bar cut and then come back and mill that pocket. That's why we see most frame locks have got the relief cut on the exterior, because it adds one more step to it to flip the knife again after doing that relief cut. So, or you'll have to change up your fixturing, utilize these holes here to bolt the lock bar down to keep it stable. There's a lot of things that people don't think about when it comes to machining and how much these parts move around on your fixture. So if your fixturing's not done well, your machining will not turn out well. You'll have chatter marks, tooling marks that you don't want, and you could have dimensions that are off. It's not quite as easy as what some people think that it is. You don't just push go on a machine and it just does all this for you. There's a lot of setup time and a lot of knowledge and know-how there. So anyway, but overall, We Manufacturing certainly knows what they're doing. They certainly know how to make a good quality knife, and this is a very interesting design. One of the things about this knife that really is my biggest complaint is putting this into the pocket. You can see right off the top here, this is a very tall knife in this dimension. Let me see here. I forgot to measure this. So at its tallest point, you're a little over 2 inches, 2.08. Just to put that into comparison, here is a Spyderco Manix that's about the same length in handle size, and that's about the difference there. So it's not a massive difference. However, putting this in the pocket, you really want this to be shoved all the way over into the corner and allow this to, shove over to your right side as much as possible. So what I found was going into the pocket, the harpoon would cause a little bit of wonkiness or funniness trying to get it into my pocket because I was constantly pushing it over to the right side, and it would kind of catch on the seam or on the hem where the pocket corner meets. So what I found myself doing was moving over a bit in my pocket, putting it down in there, and then sliding it back over. Now, coming out wasn't a problem because you got this really nice long ramp here. So as much as I liked the harpoon, I liked the look of it, and I also liked the comfort of it and how nicely, your thumb just sits right there in that poon gooch. It is a little goofy getting in the pocket. Like I said, coming out, not a problem. Going in certainly is a little bit of an issue. So, like a lot of other knives, this thing just takes up a lot of space in your pocket. That's just the way it is. So if you have a big problem with that, you're probably not going to like this knife. It just takes up a lot of pocket real estate. However, functionally, it's a really great design and a great knife. Mechanics on it are very, very well done. Of course, it's a lot of fun to fidget with and all that sort of thing. So it's ticking those boxes as well. And it's a good looking knife. I know there's probably some people out there that aren't going to like this design. Personally, I think it's a pretty interesting looking knife. Certainly something very different, which is what really drew me to it, was just how different it is. Nobody's going to mistake this for a different knife. So that part's really cool. Mr. Rogers sent along these little kind of like lapel pins, which is pretty cool. And then he also sent a little kind of thank you card for different people that are going to be reviewing this knife. And that's pretty cool. And then a few other stickers. So you've got the NR right there for Nick Rogers. And then right here, Nitch Designs. Pretty cool. And then also a sticker of the actual Ingress, which is really cool. So I really dig that. But let me grab some tools here. So we're going to take a look inside this thing because I want to show you guys the real extensive internal milling. This thing was just really well made. The fact that it has all titanium hardware is super cool. And this particular knife, one of the things as far as the mechanics of it that I'm not the biggest fan of, not a huge deal, but that I would have rather seen done just slightly different, is the two screws that I'm taking out right now. I said that these are all titanium, this all titanium hardware, which is really awesome. However, these two screws are the body screws, and I would have rathered those been, screws going into a couple of standoffs or barrel spacers. One thing they did very nice here is you can see how deep the heads of the screws are, and that in turn, these are T6, but you have really positive engagement with your tool. It's a very deep T6, which is really nice. So again, all titanium hardware. Here's your backspacer right here. A little oil on there. Let me wipe that off. Really nicely done, and you can see that it's milled out internally where the blade sits down in there, which is really cool. And you can see the two where the two body screws go through. And they also did this is the lanyard space. So when this sits in here, you can see the lanyard hole there on the back of the knife, which is really well done. Here's internally what the knife looks like. You've got a shouldered stop pin, which is really beautiful and wonderful to see. You got the NR logo there, and you can see just this very extensive internal milling. So really, really well done. With as tall as this blade is, you've got a pretty good sized chunk of 20 CV here. So, they added these holes to lighten it up. But other than that, it's really just about how thin you grind this on how heavy that's going to be. Here's your internal side of the lock bar. You can see you even have weight relieving on the lock bar itself. You got ceramic bearings with a ceramic detent ball, and you do have a captured pivot captured into the scale right there, which is very, very nicely done. I am going to place just a tiny bit of KPL on here when I go to put this back together, but I just wanted to show you the internals. This being a shouldered stop pin, most companies don't take the time to do that. There you can see the shoulder on it. This is really nice. It just adds one more point of stability. And, when this knife is all assembled, it just, it's a nice deal having those little extra steps like that. I really like those touches. So, I don't know what you guys think about this knife. But hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Like I said, it's something totally different, it's really unique, and I am certainly glad that I got an opportunity to take a look at this thing and carry it a bit. It's kind of cool being the first one to post some videos on it and kind of get the news out there. One of the great things about this knife is this is going to be a Kickstarter, Nick told me, which is really fantastic. And he is, when he does the Kickstarter, he has assured me that this knife will be under $200, which I think is a really, really great price point for something like this. So it was really important for him to keep this under the $200 range, which is just really awesome. Really cool to see that and hear a guy, also understanding that it's going to benefit everyone if this knife meets a certain price point, which is really cool. And I think for what you're getting here, full titanium construction, even titanium hardware, with 20 CV blade steel is really fantastic. Made by a reputable maker, and for under $200, is just a really competitive price that hopefully will be well received. Now, you can find Nick and his information on Instagram. I will link that stuff below. You can check out Nitch Designs. You can check out kind of his backstory and what, how he got into knives and kind of where his passions lie and that sort of thing. He's got some interesting information on his website, which is really cool. But yeah, I think for a first knife design out there, I think this is a really cool one. You can see here, blade just centered right up perfectly. Construction on this is really, really well done. Let me see if we got any zero blade play. I actually probably have the pivot just a little bit too tight. There we go. Yeah. So, really, really nicely done. It's just fully drop shut. Just like that. Really, really cool. So, you'll be able to purchase this soon on like I said, Kickstarter is how he's rolling this out for the first go around. It'll be under $200, which, yeah, I like the price point. I really, really like the ergos on this thing. It fits the hand so much better than I thought it would just by looking at it. So, if you kind of like this design, or you're into Wharncliffes, you like, anything about the look of this knife, really give it a chance before you just say no to this thing. Because I really believe that anyone that gets this in hand, it's one of those knives that once you have it in hand, you're going to like it more than, or at least for me, I certainly like it more having it in hand than I did when I first just saw a picture of it. And I like how unique it is. So, really cool. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Certainly a different, a different type of review and whatnot. Checking out some prototypes and things you've never seen before. But it was fun for me to get to spend a little time with these knives. And, yeah, hope you guys take a look at these and enjoy them. Something really cool. And I'm glad that I got to be the one to show them off. So, anyway, thanks a lot, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. We'll talk to you later. Peace.